Welcome to the Online Prosperity Show, the number one place for exclusive conversations with leaders who've actually walked through the fire and have come back with a blueprint. I'm your host, Prosper Taruvinga. And if you've ever faced maybe a career setback or a personal crisis, or maybe a moment where life just forced you to pivot, I think today's episode is for you. We're going to be unpacking the real story behind bold leadership and sustainable success. And if you're looking to unlock confidence and clarity and your next level, I think you are in the right place. So before we begin, I encourage you to hit subscribe button wherever you are so you never get to miss out on any of these topics, because this show is designed to bring you that transformation and conversations that you won't hear anywhere else. Now, today, I'm really excited about the guest we've got on today. And I've got the pleasure of welcoming Quinn, Coach Q Harwood. Now, Quinn, welcome to the show.
I'm excited to be on. As we were just chatting up a little bit before, you've got some great energy. I love what you're doing. I love that you're a mission mover, and I'm excited to share and connect and talk and hopefully really speak to what's my passion and my heart. My heart is that next generation. I call them my zillennials. Those people that are in the Gen Z and millennial range, my zillennial fam. And that's been my heart and passion, to help raise them up to be the mission movers they're called and created to be, and to make a significant impact and have all the life skills and the leadership skills to do it. So I'm excited to be on. I love your enthusiasm, what you're doing. And I can't wait for this journey we're about to go down.
Absolutely. I like that. Zillennials. Hey, it's growth time. I am really excited for this. Right. So for those that are meeting Quinn for the very first time, he is an ICF, a professional certified coach, a former professional basketball player, a corporate leader for 20 years, and the author of the book GrowthTime, which is a coaching fable which shows you the clear path to unlock your best life and leadership. And obviously the rest we're going to be unfolding as we go. But I just discovered that Coach Q is literally 6'9", which either means he was born to dunk or he was just born to stand out in every room that he shows up in. And I really can't wait to jump into that. But obviously, Quinn, what's really powerful about your journey and everything else, from what I've gathered, is not necessarily the height, but it is actually the depth of your journey. You went from professional basketball, nearly 2 decades in corporate leadership, and you lost that role during COVID. Now, walk us through the beginning. Who was Quinn before the basketball and before the 20 years of corporate leadership?
Yeah, well, that Quinn had a hard time figuring out who that Quinn was, and that's probably the crux of my beginning story. As I kind of grew up, and you'd think as an athlete, as a person who played professional sports, that you automatically got baked in this high level of confidence. And often what I realized growing up through my story, I really wrestled with kind of trying to find myself, really trying to find who I was, what I was about. And in many ways, I kind of had a lot of self-doubt, the imposter syndrome, and the unbelief really intrinsically in myself and what I was gifted and, created to do. So there was a little hot mess growing up there, Prosper, and I really wasn't sure what it looked like. But my origins, as far as my story, I'm a USA kind of person. I grew up in New Jersey, spent some time down in Virginia, went to college out in Davidson College. People who are basketball fans will know that by Steph Curry. And from Davidson College, played professional basketball for a few years, had a chance to play overseas and play with the LA Clippers briefly, and played in the lower leagues below the NBA, trying to make it cut the grade up. and, got from there, had some setbacks, some disappointments, some frustrations, some life curves, or I would call them life quakes. And those life quakes created some interesting growth opportunities, and got into the corporate culture and had a very successful career, but had some roller coaster moments in there. Had some chances to start an entrepreneurial business and went through the failure of that, and then rose back into a corporate culture, and then kind of got axed in as you mentioned, the COVID casualty of the corporate space of COVID. And so it's a journey. But what I've experienced, and I think what may be helpful, is through my learnings, is really what I coach to the most, is how to get through self-doubt, and how to get through imposter syndrome, and how to get through sometimes the unbelief that really keeps us from pursuing everything we're called and created to go chase and be a true mission mover, as I call it, Prosper.
Absolutely. And thank you so much, Quinn, for that. Now, you see, there's certain things that happen in somebody's life. Obviously, when you were growing up, you already would have been a very tall kid, and you already would have been, obviously playing basketball and things of that nature. But were there things around you, say school, home, or society, that were causing that imposter sort of syndrome? Were there expectations for you to actually succeed in life?
Yeah. In the culture I grew up with, Prosper, um, I was a late bloomer. And so if you look at 6'9", you think, oh gosh, he was always this kind of, super athletic person, but I wasn't. As a sophomore in high school, I was, 5'11". And I couldn't jump over an iPhone. And that's not a good combination when you're a basketball player and your really athleticism is poor. And so there was kind of, doubts around whether I could make it or if I was good enough. I kept growing, which was cool. But I think I had things that kind of worked against me. And part of that was myself, some choices and decisions you sometimes make in life that kind of work against you. And I think sometimes you're a product of your upbringing. And I think I had some really good upbringing in the sense of work ethic and hard work, but I didn't have any coping skills. My kind of definition of masculinity was kind of skewed. I thank my dad that he worked really hard, but on the same way, his coping mechanism was unfortunately alcohol. And so when you grow up in a home that's got an addiction, that's got challenges, you get a skewed view of what being a man's really about. And you're not getting a lot of affirmation. You're not getting a lot of support in ways that help you build and grow emotionally and emotional strength as a male. And your identity quickly gets wrapped up in what you're doing. And that's really what happened. I got this wrapped up and into this world of my basketball, and basketball was who I was. And it's where I built my confidence from. And that's a fragile world, as I, would later find out in life, that if you build your life on your performance, which is common for most people, right? I coach people through that consistently. When your performance is based on something that can shift from day to day or week to week, it's a shaky ground. And you tend to go through a roller coaster of emotions. And I lived that life, unfortunately, for many years into my 20s. Had some major transformations happen in my 20s. But man, that was it. And so I kind of grew up in a culture where we kind of chased, success. We chased, money. We chased accolades and achievement. And we chased, things that, could be destructive, destructive behaviors, whether that was drinking or whether that was women. You chase things that really, in the long run, you thought they were going to fulfill you. They thought you could find your identity in it, but it was a fake. And so I lived that. And that was a roller coaster of a journey, Prosper.
Absolutely. And I really appreciate you taking us through that, because it just paints a picture of, what it was like, and the reason for you to then go on the journey that you went on. Now, looking at what you just mentioned, I mean, you obviously mentioned, people like Steph Curry as people that would have been in the vicinity of what you were doing, and that's a name that we all recognize. Were there other sort of role models, either positive or distractors, that we would have also been prominent in that area? Because you are alluding to the fact that around your sort of prime and growth, there were certain things that were happening. So obviously there were detractors, and there were also maybe some things that were pulling you forward.
Yes. I had a coach my sophomore year in high school who actually believed in me, and that was unique. Someone who showed confidence into me, someone who saw something in me more than I saw in myself. And I mentioned, in sports and athletics and basketball specifically, being athletic helps quite a bit. And being a non-athletic at that point in my life, he saw me and transitioned me to playing a point guard position. So I was 5'11", 6 foot, usually didn't play like a point guard position, but he believed that I was the best person for the job. And he kept sowing confidence into me. And that year, it was my sophomore year, I really started to come out. And because I had a coach who kind of supported and believed that I could do something I didn't see in myself. And that was a game changer for me, to have someone really affirm you, affirm you as a person. They believed in you when you didn't know if you believed in yourself. And you had so much self-doubt, just kind of almost hamstringing you. And the other part, I had a good role model. I was getting into trouble a little bit as a youth. You grow up in Jersey and you could be a little mischievous. And so you can hang out with Snooki and the Jersey Shore people, and you can get a little mischievous. And the wrong crowd was starting to latch on to me. I can remember in 8th grade going to the juvenile hall for doing some dumb stuff and getting a wake up call like, oh wow, like I'm on probation as a juvenile, and that's not good. But in the story of that, there was at my high school, a gentleman named Grant Hill. He's a Hall of Famer in basketball. He's a broadcaster now, a well-known broadcaster. He was in my high school. He was 2 years older than me. And it was cool because he was a leader in the forefront, meaning that he did the right decisions in high school. So he was that All-American. He went to Duke and, won national championships. And in that, he got good grades, did the right decisions, wasn't out with the party crew. And it gave me something to look up to, in high school. Like, oh, I want to be like that. I can't jump like that man could. That man's had some bunnies. But like, it was what I wanted to be like. So that helped kind of, direct my path, or kind of give me a hope, a courage of what good could look like. So that was significant. That was very significant.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for painting that, because, when we are growing up, we are, it's times where we are receptive to the influences of those that are around us, and we're very impressionable. And it's the people that are around us that would then form the journey that we're going on. But as you've mentioned, there was not that much self-confidence in yourself. And having a coach, like you've mentioned, who literally went on and passed on that belief that you later on used for yourself. And what I really want the people watching here is, sometimes if you don't have belief in yourself, you could borrow other people's belief in you in order for you to be to and have that sort of happier existence. And, you mentioned the name Grant Hill. When we were growing up, there was a commercial that said Grant Hill drinks Sprite, and it was a Sprite commercial. So when you just mentioned that name, I just knew everybody went on to buy Sprite because Grant Hill represented that which you just mentioned. And now that you've mentioned it, it sort of came full circle for me. So obviously from there, Quinn, you went on to become a professional basketball player, obviously with that sort of platform having been laid. And when you maybe look back, what did that season of life really teach you about discipline, resilience, maybe leadership, maybe that you wouldn't have seen when it was actually happening at that time, or maybe appreciated when it was happening at that time?
Great college coach, Coach Bob McKillop, Hall of Famer, basketball coach, coached there 30 years, phenomenal. And he led from a point of values, and values became a key part of how we built our program back at Davidson College. And he was a New Yorker, so he had a level of toughness and grit that I lacked. And so in building confidence, sometimes it's in the action of doing and being pushed and challenged. It's about mental toughness. And so in that journey of playing college sports, the disciplines, the habits, the mental toughness, developing an edge, developing a tenacity, I think he really brought that out of me. And so that was a huge win for me as far as what sports and athletics taught me, how to have some mental fortitude. I call it mental muscle now, right? How you build the mental muscle. So that was a big win. What I also noticed too, though, and you talk about when I get into the professional basketball journey, I still knew I didn't get drafted out of college. I thought I was going to get drafted. There was 2 rounds in the NBA. I didn't get drafted in the second round. I thought I'd get drafted. And I had a tryout with the Los Angeles Lakers. And this is where the story of confidence becomes even clearer. So in that trial for the Los Angeles Lakers, after practice, we had a summer league games. We play in the summer league with their team out in Los Angeles. And at practice, I'd have some shooting competitions with this 18-year-old kid. And this 18-year-old kid, borderline cocky, but he just had such confidence in himself that I looked at that and I knew that I didn't have that. I knew that this 18-year-old kid, in regard to the sport, in regard to how he believed about himself, I didn't have that level of confidence. And that 18-year-old at the time was a guy named Kobe Bryant.
Whoa.
And so playing and shooting, and I would talk trash to him, but I knew inside that he had a higher level of confidence. And I knew there was something still missing in my story. I couldn't put a pulse on it, didn't know how to solve the problem. I knew I had to keep fighting and keep being disciplined, and there's some places there. But I was missing something, in that space. And it wasn't until I got cut by the Lakers. I think they forever regret that, Prosper. I think they would have won more championships if they had me. Just kidding. When I went down to the lower league below the NBA, it was a dark season for me. It was a really dark season, and I couldn't get off the bench, meaning that I was at the end of the bench in professional basketball and the minor league. I saw the hopes and dreams I had fading, and I knew I was starting to slip into a mental space that I was trying to fight so hard to avoid. What happens in our life story is often our upbringing, before we're aware of it, creeps into us. And we're not really taking ownership of our choices and decisions like we need to be as in that space. And what I found myself drifting, and to me, drifting looked like I wasn't a huge partier or drinker, but we would go out and have some parties. But I noticed sometimes I found myself a couple nights just drinking alone, and that was the worst thing I despised. I'd just be zoning out, playing PlayStation, just sitting back on some rum and cokes. And I said, gosh, this is exactly what I don't want to be. And there was something so missing and lost in my story. I couldn't put my finger on it, but I knew I was wrestling internally. I was wrestling with me. And at some point, it's not about your past. It's about who you are and who you want to become. And I was completely wrestling with myself.
Now, Quinn, I want to go back a little bit before we sort of move on. So you did mention you had a brush-in with the late, great Kobe Bryant, and you did see his sort of confidence in himself. Now, when you come across such greatness at such an age, and when your confidence is not the best, does that enhance your greatness or your confidence, or does that actually take you away thinking, oh, I could never be like that, so why should I bother? Because I think a lot of people come into contact with certain things and certain circumstances in their life, which then actually takes them either forward or backwards. So in that particular moment, was there faith or was there fear involved in who you were becoming?
It's becoming, it was more of a noter, and I didn't know if I had it. I didn't know if I was good enough.
Right.
And so it wasn't like a thought of like, I'm going to peel back. At that point, I had a good mental fortitude to go, I'm going to keep pressing because I'm still going towards what I believe. But I didn't know if I was enough. I didn't know if I measured up. If I didn't know if I had it. I wasn't in a place of regression, like I'll throw in the towel, I don't want to try. But I definitely had, which is common for a lot of people, even in the professional world or the settings we're in. Man, do I really have it to get to that next level? Do I really have it? Do I have that next gear? Do I have that next space? The game of life is invariably more play between your ears and in your heart than it is about your actual performance. And so I didn't know if I could do it. I didn't know if I had it, but I was still at that point going to keep trying.
Absolutely. And then obviously you went on and obviously the basketball didn't sort of pan out in the way that you would have wanted to, but that didn't stop you. You went on and spent nearly 20 years in the fitness industry in mid-senior leadership. Tell us what your sort of cross-section of a day would look like. What sort of roles were you doing and what was expected of you?
Yeah. For sure. I'll give you a quick interlude, though. I'll probably backpeel a little bit because the story got better from where I was.
Oh,
Before I jump into the corporate culture, I want to get to the transformational part that really sparked me, that really changed and shifted me, and that was a question that a roommate that I was rooming with in the minor leagues. He was a roommate on the road. He kind of asked me, and it set me searching. And I think that's the power of questions and coaching, which I now, walk in today, is asking powerful questions that makes people search for an answer that they're not sure of. And he asked me a question that was more religious based. It was faith based. He asked me, he said, "Hey, where are you at with God? Where are you at with Jesus in your life?" And I looked at him and I'm like, I don't know. Like, I've got too many other issues I'm trying to figure out. I'll get to that later. And in that, though, it challenged me because for a point in my life, I didn't know what I believed. And it was the first time I came to a conclusion. I'm not sure what I really believe about life. I'm not sure what I believe about a God. And I'm not really sure what I believe about myself. And it became a switch. And I would say that day, growth time was born. It was my time for growth time. Growth time was born because I began to say, what do I truly believe and why? Not what I was raised with, not what I was born with, not what everyone else had kind of filtered me through my point in life, but what do I believe? And that set me searching. And I went through a major transformation over the next 3 or 4 months of my life. Part of that was I did find belief in God. And part of that was that having a God believe in me elevated my belief in myself. And part of what I coach to a lot is not just self-improvement, but the God improvement, and how self-improvement and God improvement really empower an individual to walk in the full power of you. That's actually like the whole first section of the book of Growth Time, the power of you, and how to walk and come into a place of belief and clarity on you, your person, your vision, your values, from a higher level perspective. How does God see you? How does God view you? And getting clarity on your beliefs. It was transformational for me. And what was so transformational was my confidence began to grow. And within 6 months, I went from the end of the bench in the seat in the lower level to signing a contract and playing with the Los Angeles Clippers. So the story began to switch. And when my growth time happened, I began to really challenge what I believed and began to own it. Man, my whole world began to shake. And that started my growth time journey. And then I got really invested into personal growth and development and professional growth and development. And that became a catalyst. In essence, now where I'm at as a coach, I share and coach through these lessons of growth time that kind of sequentially kind of filtered over my life. And what I've seen is in my personal growth and how you package information to people can be very fast forward their journey. And so it's been awesome. It's been an awesome personal growth journey for me. And then being able to encapsulate that in the story of growth time and allow people to fast track their personal growth through life and leadership. It's been a game changer, not just for me, but for all the people I've coached, and how fast and how quick, and the level of career advancement and mental clarity, and confidence, just bold confidence, and the way they walk away from self-sabotage and doubt. It's been amazing. Nothing short of miraculous is what I can really share, Prosper.
absolutely. I love that. And the fact that clarity became the center stage, because information changes situations. When you are now put in such a position for you to stop and, really not just go through the motions, but to actually start focusing, where am I, who am I, and what are my beliefs and the values that you keep talking about and things like that. So this means coaching was already in your heart way before it became your profession then.
Was in the form of personal growth and development. And if to jump into what you asked about career, I started off my career, doing sales. And so I really started just doing sales in the fitness industry. And I thought it'd just be for about 6 months and I was going to take one last crack at the, professional sports. I went through a number of injuries, that really derailed the basketball career. But, in that, I started off in sales, and it turned out I was really dang good at it, and I became one of the top salespeople, and I'm still top 5 in the company history in terms of sales. And from there, I developed skill sets. And then from there I got into leadership. You do well with something and they feel like, can you teach others? And I found a love for coaching and teaching others. And so then I built a career from leadership. Leadership was always an ends, not the means to an end for me. So I invested in leadership and personal growth and leadership growth. And I knew, in essence, if I grew people, I could grow profits. And people grow profits. So the success I had as a leader and as an overseer was really just growing people. And I found such a joy in that, in helping them grow and develop. And that became almost my mission statement. And that's kind of like my main mission mover, is to grow and develop leaders' lives through impactful coaching, training, and education. So that journey continued to blossom over 20 years, and I continue to refine the skill set, through some bumps and bruises, right? And you learn about leadership and what's effective, what's not effective, certain skill sets, certain concepts, beliefs. And as that journey grew, I just continued to sow into others. And so, yes, when COVID came, and that's a whole different story we can get into about painful journeys. But yeah, coaching became like a very budding skill set in me, and my passion to help other people, grow and develop.
Absolutely. And before we even touch up on the pandemic times, you introduced us to a coach who you said believed in you in your earlier years, and you've literally become that for others as well.
I'd like to think so, Prosper. I like to think there's in me a really, I got 3 kids, but even bigger than that, I tend to think that I've been given a father's heart, to kind of just, not just coach and press, but move people into a place of believing. And then having skills and habits and structure on how to break through that. Because as the kid, I could say, oh, I have a heart to help people with, imposter syndrome or getting past fear or getting past barriers. But if I don't have certain tools, and at the core of GrowthTime, even though it's a coaching fable, it literally marks off a clear path. Step 1, 2, 3, how to grow through life, and step 1, 2, 3 in leadership. If I don't give the person skills and the ability to grow and develop into that, I'm just like a resounding gong or a cymbal or like blowing a horn, bro. I don't really help them. I just say, oh, I wish you could be this, or I hope you can become like, oh, I've evolved. No, it's about helping and empowering people. And I think that's a real kind of mentor, coach, father's heart. And that's where I think I stem from. Out of our pain, we always find our purpose. And if I can help the next generation fast track their clarity, fast track to be the mission mover, the person that wants more and feels more and wants to be significant, and give them life skills, leadership skills, business skills that we work through quite a bit. Man, I'm fulfilled in that. And I feel fulfilled when others reach their potential. And so, yeah, it's in there. And if I can do anything I can to bring that gift out, then I know I'm being a good steward of what God gave me as a gift.
Absolutely. And I think it was Zig Ziglar that said, help enough people get what they want, and you too will get that which you want and more. And you would notice that when you open up yourself to help others be, do, and have, the fulfillment that you receive is much more than when you're just looking internally and you're just saying, woe is me. Because if you're just looking at your own self, you are obviously not creating for and relating to others in the fashion that you're talking about. And if you would look at the parallels of the boy you introduced us, who was going through what he was going through, and what did you call them? The life quacks, and now
Life quakes.
the life cracks, right? And then now you're talking about, you're a father, you've got a family, and helping others be, do, and have. There's a significant difference there. And I just wanted to point to that fact that when we start doing and helping others achieve, we stop looking for, just for our own selfish, upbringing. So good on you for doing that. Now,
it's so common, Prosper, because I love what you're saying, because really one of the precepts is just self-focus. And that's really where I was lost in as a young person, the self-focus. And it's the enemy of our souls, right? And how we break through self-focus that wants to bind us and hold us and restrain us. man, that's some of the big breakthroughs in life. And hearing your heart and what you share, you've got it too, man. That's why I enjoy talking to you. This is great.
Absolutely. All right. So while everybody was coughing into their elbows, you were battling a lot more than just trying to put your mask straight on. What happened in 2020?
It happened to a lot, and we almost maybe want amnesia to forget about COVID. But the anxiety, the stress, the strain, the cultural times, I mean, it was crazy, right? I mean, 6 foot, the distancing. I got COVID really early on in the process, and they thought I was the Black Plague. But, there was a couple factors that unfortunately were shaping COVID for me. One was personal. One was a personal spot that was painful. In the story of my family, I was going through a very unexpected, divorce. And if you've been through it, you know the pain of it, you know the suffering of it, you know the breakup of it. It was brutal. And so there was this brutal personal space that I was just trying to absorb and navigate through. And then you get the call from your leaders, hey, everyone's furloughed. You've got almost a 20-year career here that you're building, and you get furloughed. And, out of that furlough, the company I work for, 24 Hour Fitness, for years, they were the biggest, baddest, most top revenue fitness company in America. They fell behind the competition a little bit. And in that story, when COVID hit, it kind of exasperated the financial picture, and they ended up declaring bankruptcy, and they closed over 120 of their gym stores. And the market I ran for them, I was an area kind of mid-senior level manager, was heavily impacted. So all of a sudden overnight, my role's eliminated. And now the career's gone, and what you envision or the stability of what you had is dissolved. You're going through this internal grieving, process. So it was just it was a unique period that was another, you talk about a life quake. This is 8.0, man, or 5.0, whatever the highest Richter scale of a life quake you can get. That's what I was walking through in COVID.
And obviously, I mean, you did mention the private life was getting a beating. The professional life was also getting a beating. But where were we spiritually?
Yeah, spiritually, I was in an awesome place. And that's the amazing story. If you look through, or if I look through in retrospect, all the growth lessons, and I think often the growth lessons are the places what I call growth gaps. So self-doubt, imposter syndrome, maybe not confident in leadership, or how you're navigating difficult conversations, or how you're driving performance at work. They are what I call growth gaps. And sometimes we can't understand the root cause of the growth gap. And so having been through these growth gaps in my life story, what was very unique is that I still had, even though you're going through a grief or a loss, there was this unshakable confidence inside that it's like lifting weights. If you've lifted weights long enough, you get strong, and you know that you can lift weights. And so with different adversities I've gone through and addressing these growth gaps that I saw in personal growth, man, I still have this level of confidence that, man, what's next? There's going to be a good opportunity that comes. I'm going to walk through that door. I'm going to have confidence to walk through it in boldness. I'm not going to shrink. I'm not going to fail. I'm not going to be overcome by my circumstances. And so there was built up some spiritual strength, some mental fortitude, strength, and some emotional strength in me at that point of my journey, right? And my growth journey. And so in that, I began to question what's next. What does this next step look like? And in that, Prosper, I ended up working with a coach. I didn't know a ton about the coaching industry as a professional entity, or the volume of business or what it looked like as an entity. I vaguely heard of a life coach and don't really know what that would entail or look like. And many people today don't even know the value of what life coaching or leadership coaching can look like. So I got with a coach. And then, terminology I use, I got with the great growth coach. That's kind of my fun name for God. Team God has this great growth coach. Got with him, and just the vision became clear to get into the coaching world. So I just started coaching. and I started coaching people. Opportunities came, and I just started from scratch. There was no like, I got this all figured out. It's never the right time to launch into anything new. There's never a perfect space. There's never a perfect time to be like, oh, this is the best time to go through a career transition. This is the best time to have a kid, which people struggle with. And so I just launched out into this coaching space. And I began to take the lessons that I had grown through in my personal life, and I turned it into the Growth Time journey. The Growth Time book is a resource, and I turned it into that. And like I said, there's 3 growth zones in life, and there's 3 in leadership. And what was great, I knew it worked for me, but what I didn't know if it worked for others. So,
Mm.
the story evolved. I began to coach people through these growth time lessons and address growth gaps. And I just saw phenomenal change and transformation in people's lives. And it was so powerful. And I said, oh my gosh, this is where my mission goes now. My mission goes into being a coach, to kind of getting people into a growth time journey and helping their growth story, to pull everything out of them, to be the mission mover that they're inwardly wanting and desiring to be. And so it became just a revelation as I coached through it that, holy cow, this is some powerful stuff I'm coaching through. And it works. And that's the bottom line, right? You can say you can coach through stuff, but if it don't work, it don't work. But when you see people get new visions, new goals, mental clarity, break through self-sabotage, develop leadership skills, be able to lead teams at a higher level. I do quite a bit of business coaching too, and people's operational profits, skyrocket 30, 40, 100% over a year, and what they do with their businesses. I mean, it's just a place of, man, I'm in the right space, and I'm really doing what I feel like I'm called to do to make an impact.
Listening to you, it really validates that statement. I think it was Tony Robbins that mentioned that life doesn't happen to you, it happens for you. Because with all that was being thrown at you, you utilized every single bit of it, and you now created for, and you've now got something to offer to other people. And so many people would have been like, okay, I think I'm out of this, maybe go into fetal position, let me look after numero uno. But you went outward and you started helping others so they too can get past that. So I'm actually then concluding that whatever is happening in your life, pay attention, because one day you'll have a good story to tell, not only on the Online Prosperity Show, but it is actual growth time. Absolutely. And for those that are watching right now, if you've ever maybe felt like your setback disqualified you, what if it was actually preparing you for that which was or is going to help you be, do, and have? I think Coach Q may have lost a role, may have lost the opportunity or the seat in professional basketball, but he found a calling. And I like that so much. So maybe your pivot is not waiting for permission. Maybe today is that permission. So Coach Q, tell us, what is growth time? Because you've made a movement out of this, right? You are obviously talking about what it does and what that means, but I know it's not just a name, growth time, as you spell it and sound it. What's the mission behind empowering mission movers?
That's really, you just called it out. I mean, that is actually my mission statement: to empower mission movers to change the world they influence. That is the motivator before. And a mission mover, it could be a broad term, but, for those that are listening, if this identifies with you, then it's for you. A mission mover is obviously have this space where they feel like they're gifted or called, or they're motivated by more, right? Whether it's their higher calling, their higher purpose, but they're not just motivated by position in life. They're motivated by purpose. A mission mover is very goal oriented, but they're not attached to the full achievement as far as finding significance. A mission mover is motivated by making an impact and finding significance in that. And then that connects to their money, to their income, to generating revenue. It's putting the why before the what. But most messaging is about, hey, do this, accomplish this, and you'll be a 7-figure income earner. You'll be this, you'll get this money. That's what you want. But a mission mover puts the mission and what's behind it first. And what I do as a coach is help them get clear on what their mission is sometimes. What's their true mission? And that builds that's like astronomical confidence. That's like Kobe Bryant confidence when you know what your true mission is and your motivator, and then you can learn to express those gifts or talents in the right arena. It's a game changer. Growth time itself, Prosper, it's the story of a clear pathway to become that mission mover. It's a clear pathway how to become strong in life and leadership. And so there's really, kind of 6 different growth zones. I think I mentioned that, already during the show, but it addresses the major growth gaps that prevent us from unlocking our best life in leadership. And so even though it's written as a fable and a story, which has gotten some really great reviews, it's also like a resource. There's places along that growth time journey to stop. It's kind of like climbing a mountain. Like the personal growth world is absolutely like climbing a mountain. Personal professional growth is like climbing a mountain. And sometimes there's a lot of weeds, there's a lot of bumps, there's a lot of rocks, and you're climbing to something more. And you at least intentionally invest in you, but you're climbing a mountain. And really what I like to think is that, man, in terms of living a bold, confident life, I'm climbing that mountain. And really, I'm just kind of saying to the people that I'm wanting to come up here, and here's the pathway so you don't run into all the brushel, so you don't stub your toe, so you don't fall off a ledge. Here's the pathway up for your personal professional growth so you can climb that mountain you're trying to climb in life. And there's definitely an audience of people, as a lineal group, they want to climb mountains in life. They don't want to be just settled. They're not okay with just going through the motions or saying, why bother? Or, I can't do this. They want to climb mountains. And so personal professional growth is always a pathway to get to your being a mountain climber and a mountain mover. And growth time helps you say, okay, here's the places, here's the path to climb that mountain so that I can be bold, I can be courageous, I can have skills in life and leadership to really make the impact I want to make.
What I'm hearing here, Quinn, is you're offering a pattern break. Indulge me for a minute here, because normally in life, we go through a linear phase. You grew up in Jersey, you play basketball, which is what every kid would want to do. You tried out for the NBA, you went on, had a job, maybe things didn't work out. Everything was just sort of like in a linear sort of fashion, but you had a series of breaks that caused you to sit back and recalibrate. Some people just go through that line, and maybe the only thing that would have happened was COVID, and that pattern break would have just been you stay at home, don't go and meet your friends at work or at church. So they haven't really experienced life quirks as you have. And I feel like what you're asking people or showing people or giving people permission to do is stop, reflect, not necessarily climb a physical mountain, but climb the mountain of self, to have that awareness of who you're becoming and what you are becoming, so that you can make the most of it. Because once you know that information changes situations. And once that is presented to somebody else, I feel like it becomes somewhat of a rite of passage. Now, if we're all sitting at the end of our seats right now, thinking, how do I become a mission mover? Where can people go to, Quinn, so that they can be a part of this?
Places you could really start, but LinkedIn is a powerful way just to connect with me on LinkedIn. Quinn Harwood, you'll find that there's not a lot of us out there in the world, but go to LinkedIn. All right, connect with me. And when you connect with me on LinkedIn, you automatically get connected to a weekly newsletter that I write. It's free coaching. It's mindset coaching. One powerful truth I've learned about human behavior is mindset changes behavior. So if you're listening, just write that down. Pause, absorb it, Don't get distracted. Mindset changes behavior. Nothing changes in our life, our behavior, even today, how you woke up, until your mindset changed. Mindset changes behavior. So in that, every Monday, I write a column called Monday Movers Mindset. Monday is for movers. It's the day we've got to decide if we're going to move our mission. And there's coaching that every week I give out that helps you frame your mindset for the week. It's not a TikTok, right? You can't have like 5 different TikToks mindsets going every single day. You can't like flip from one thought to the other. It's about stabilizing and strengthening a mindset for the week. So it's free coaching. Get connected to that through LinkedIn. The next part, I'd highly encourage you, right? If this kind of talk or this thought inspires you, you're looking for more, you're saying, gosh, I do want to have my growth time. And some of the concepts he's saying, I may not really grab. I'm not even sure what God improvement really looks like in my life. I'm not sure how that messes with personal growth. I can only encourage you, take that next step. Go on Amazon, get the book. It's a message and a resources, and there's tools in there to really equip you and challenge you so you can be a mountain climber. You can climb that mountain and really find the significance and the bold confidence you need to make a huge impact in life and even in your family, your relationships. It's a game changer. So start that growth time journey. Make a declaration if you're on here. Okay, you know what? I maybe haven't invested in my personal growth to the degree that I need to. There's something he's saying that's like shifting within me, and I need to take another step. I need to say, hey, I need to step into my growth time. Step into it. Go through it. I will promise you, if you get into that, you will see significant changes in your life in the next 6 months. You will see your confidence go up. You'll see your mindset shift. You'll see breakthroughs. You'll perform better at your work or job. Your friends, your family, they'd be like, dude, what got into this person, right? Get into your growth time. What happened? And really the notion of it is I say, what time is it? That's why it's a clock in the background. That's why I wear a watch here. What time is it? It's always growth time, baby. It's always growth time. Don't fight it. Don't resist it. Jump into it. Don't be afraid of it. Jump into it. Dive into it. Or at least crawl up here, start to climb that mountain. Or find where you are in the mountain. Either one.
Absolutely. You've mentioned 2 words, God and growth, all intertwined, throughout the conversation and everything else. And the biggest thing that you were in search for was a lot of confidence. And now you're imparting that to people. And I think it would be remiss if we don't call what you're doing Godfidence or Growthfidence, because it's all morphed into that, and you're just packaging it, and now you're offering it as a clear path to unlock the best in people's lives and leaderships. I'll be putting all those links to that book in the show notes so that people can actually jump on and connect with you. Now, Coach Q, I know we could go on and talk about stuff. We even started way before, and I still have a lot. I got a lot, What's next? You've brought us into your world now. What are you working on now that we can also be excited to look forward to and jump on the bandwagon of the things that you're creating?
This is kind of what's next. I think where I'm at with the growth time journey, there's the combination of everything being cleared, pathed out in the book and the message growth time. Online, there's also a year newsletter course. It's stripped out that someone can go through. There's 6 months on life and there's 6 months in leadership. So there's a pathway at a very kind of reasonable cost. My goal is to reach that next level leader, emerging leader. It's not like a path that's going to cost you $40 to go through 6 months. It's less than an Amazon Prime movie a month to invest in you. So I have that pathway too. If you're going deeper, there's a pathway on the website, on my website. There's also a really deep dive course done called The Power of You. The Power of You is actually the first kind of module of Growth Zone that you'll explore even in the book, but it takes you like a mile deep into how to walk in the power of you. So those frameworks are out there. I think where my heart is now is kind of what I'm doing now, Prosper. And I'm just like, I'm just so thankful in essence that people like you are allowing me space to be on your show and just be able to share the message. And that's just really where I'm at. My vision is to get in front of as many audiences, whether that's through podcasting or speaking, and kind of share those messages, share the messages that help them be that mission mover, get past self-doubt, get past the imposter syndrome, how to find an unshakable belief to help you climb the mountain that you were called to climb. And so it's about getting the message out for me at this point, Prosper.
Now, Coach Q, I can't thank you enough for the time that we spent on the call today. I mean, your life story and your experience and the journey that you have taken have so much for people to unpack. And yeah, I just can't wait to see what people are going to do with the information we've imparted today.
And you got me to start to tear up out of gratitude just to be on here, Prosper. So you pulled the heartstring, man. Nice work.
Thank you so much. Now, that was a powerful conversation. And if this episode really spoke to you, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with somebody who really needs to experience the Godfidence or the growthfidence that you have experienced today, or somebody who just needs to hear that a setback can be the setup for a comeback. And if somebody has shared this video with you, the next time you see them, just give them a very big hug, because they're seeing something in you that you probably never saw in yourself, just like the coaches and the people that believed in Coach Q, who he is now also sending the elevator down to those that are, on their way up, so that they too can be, do, and have a happier existence. And if you're just joining us for the very first time, welcome. This is the Online Prosperity Show. And in the next episode, we're going to be diving into ideas that we hope will be able to help you not just build success, but genuinely a happier existence. Because I think prosperity without peace isn't prosperity at all. So subscribe, turn on the notifications, and most importantly, take action. And I love what Coach Q said, and he said it best. I think growth happens when intention meets action. Take action. So here's your challenge. And I want you to ask yourself, what's one bold move that you've been postponing or thinking you can do later, or you've been waiting, but you've never really gotten around to it? Drop it in the comments. Declare it publicly, because I think today is growth time, and growth time begins today. Well, thank you so much, Coach Quinn. I can't wait to see what people are going to do with this information. Bye for now.